Okay, so you know how sometimes you think you've got a handle on like what's happening in the world and then boom, a story comes out of nowhere that just like shakes you up.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
Well, we've got one of those stories today, and honestly, it's hard to even wrap your head around it.
Hit me with it.
We're talking Patiala, India, and get this, a serving army colonel out with his son ends up allegedly brutally assaulted by Punjab police.
Whoa, hold on. That's intense. A colonel and his son by the police.
Yeah, and it's like straight out of a movie gone wrong. You know, we've been combing through these initial reports, trying to put together a timeline of what happened, what led to this. Like, it's mind blowing.
It's like 1 minute everything is normal, and the next it's chaos and violence, and you're left wondering, how on earth did we get here?
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do here, kind of sift through all the initial shock and emotion to get to the bottom of it. What actually happened? What are the specific accusations? And what does the reaction tell us about the bigger picture in India?
Right, because we're not just talking about a random assault here, right?
Yeah.
This involves a high-ranking military officer and the police, the people who are supposed to be upholding the law. It raises so many questions about power dynamics, accountability, the whole system.
It really does. And it's like you said, you're trying to find some logic in it all, some explanation, but it's just hard to grasp. I mean, the trigger for all of this apparently was a parking dispute. A parking dispute.
You've got to be kidding me. A parking dispute escalated to this level of violence.
That's what it seems like. We're talking about Colonel Pushpinder Singh Bath and his son, Angad Singh, just hanging out by the side of the road in Patiala,
Doing what?
grabbing some Maggie, like the instant noodles.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
It's like a casual father-son moment. And then, boom, this whole thing with the police erupts.
So what happened? What's the son's side of the story?
Well, Angad Singh's account is pretty straightforward. He says the police just showed up, and he makes it a point to say they were driving on the wrong side of the road and immediately ordered them to move their car. Like, not even a polite request, just straight up move it.
Wow. So already there's this sense of aggression from the get-go.
Right, and what's important here is how Angad describes his dad's response. It wasn't aggressive or anything. He basically just said, hey, I'm a serving army officer. Maybe you could address me with some respect. You'd think that would maybe de-escalate things, right?
Yeah, you would hope so, right? Like appealing to their sense of reason or maybe even some shared camaraderie as fellow protectors of the country.
But that's not what happened at all. According to these reports, one of the officers just punched Colonel Bath right in the face, hard enough to break his glasses, knock him onto the car, and then he fell to the ground. It's like a completely disproportionate response to a simple comment.
Oh, man, that's awful. And it wasn't just the colonel, right? There were allegations of an assault on the son, too.
Yeah, that's what the reports are saying. It wasn't just a one-off thing directed at the colonel. It seems like there was this broader aggression from the police towards both of them.
Okay, so we've got this brutal incident taking place, but it doesn't end there, right?
Yeah.
This becomes a much bigger issue because of what happens next.
Exactly. So Colonel Bath's wife, Jaswinder Kaur, she doesn't just sit back and take this. She immediately organizes a protest right outside the Patiala Deputy Commissioner's office.
Makes sense she's demanding justice for her husband and son. But what really makes this story explode is who joins her in this protest.
Right. It wasn't just a few people. It was a huge show of support from ex-servicemen from all over Punjab. They came out in force to stand with her. And that's when you realize this isn't just about one family. It's about something much bigger.
It speaks to a deep sense of solidarity within the veteran community. They saw this as an attack on one of their own, and they weren't going to let it go unnoticed. It makes you wonder, what this incident represents with them. Is it about respect? Is it about the perceived obligations of civilian authorities towards those who've served the country?
That's a really good point. It goes beyond just the immediate assault. It taps into these deeper issues of how veterans are treated and perceived in society. And Jaswinder Kaur's demands, they were very specific. First, she called for a CBI inquiry.
A CBI inquiry, so that's the Central Bureau Investigation, right?
Yeah. She wants the central government to investigate this, not just the local police. That tells you something right there about the level of distrust in the local authorities.
Absolutely. It's like saying we don't trust the local police to be impartial or thorough enough in their investigation. We need an outside agency to come in and get to the truth.
And her second demand was the immediate transfer of the Patiala Superintendent of Police, Nanak Singh. So she's basically saying the top cop in the area needs to be held accountable too.
Right. It sends a message that this isn't just about the officers involved. It's about the leadership and the culture within the police force that might have allowed this to happen.
And then there's this other element that comes out, which is so important. An auto rickshaw driver who witnessed the whole thing comes forward to back up Angad Singh's account.
Whoa, that changes things.
Right. It's not just the family's word against the police anymore. You have this independent witness who's saying, yeah, I saw what happened and this is what went down.
That's huge. It completely undermines any attempt to dismiss the family's claims as exaggerated or made up. It adds so much weight to their story, and it makes it much harder for the police to spin a different narrative.
And then it gets even more interesting because then there are reports that the police tried to spread rumors that Colonel Bath and his son were drunk at the time of the incident.
Oh, come on, really? That's like the oldest trick in the book, trying to smear the victims and make it seem like they were somehow responsible for what happened to them.
Yeah, it's a classic deflection tactic, but in this case it backfired spectacularly. Medical reports came out that completely debunked those rumors. So not only do you have these serious allegations of assault, you also have what looks like a pretty clumsy attempt at a cover-up.
And that just further erodes public trust, right? It makes it seem like the police are more interested in protecting themselves than in getting to the bottom of what happened.
So how do the authorities respond to all of this?
Well, the Deputy Commissioner of Patiala, Priya Yadav, she does show up at the protest,
Yeah.
and she promises that justice will be served.
But that's kind of a standard response, isn't it? We've heard that before in these situations. It's easy to say the right words, but what about concrete action?
That's the key question, and the fact that the protests continued even after her assurances tells you that people weren't satisfied. They wanted to see real accountability, not just words.
It's about action speaking louder than words, right? Especially in a situation as sensitive and high profile as this one. And of course, as with any story that grabs public attention, the politicians start to weigh in. Former Patiala MP Preet Kaur, she turns up at the protest, and you know what's interesting? The reports suggest that the family wasn't necessarily thrilled to see her there.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
It could be that they saw her presence as more about political opportunism than genuine concern. Like she's trying to capitalize on the situation for her own benefit.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like they're saying this isn't about politics, it's about justice for our family and for anyone who might be vulnerable to this kind of abuse of power.
Exactly. But there is one thing Preet Kaur said that's worth noting. She demanded that senior Army officers be included in the special investigation team, the SIT, that was formed to look into the incident.
Okay, so she's pushing for military representation in the investigation. What do you make of that?
I think it's a smart move. It addresses this sense that the investigation needs to be impartial, and it acknowledges the unique perspective that the military brings to the table.
Right? It's like saying we need people who understand the military culture and the implications of this incident for the armed forces to be involved in finding the truth.
Exactly. And then you have Punjab Congress President Amarinder Singh Rajawaring coming out swinging hard against the AAP government. He accused them of mistreating soldiers and farmers, and he didn't hold back on social media.
So he's really using this incident to attack the ruling party's record on these key issues. It's interesting how quickly something like this can become politicized.
It is, and it shows you how sensitive these issues are in Punjab, the relationship between the government and the military and the farming community. And Waring is clearly trying to tap into that sentiment and paint the AAP government in a negative light.
It's all part of the political game, isn't it? Using these events to score points and advance your agenda?
Yeah, for sure. But beyond the politics, there's this one question that keeps coming up, and it's really disturbing. One of the reports called it painfully ironic.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
The question is, if a serving Army colonel can be assaulted by the police like this, what hope does an average citizen have?
Wow. Yeah, that's a chilling thought.
Right. It cuts to the core of the whole idea of law enforcement and public safety. If someone who's supposed to be protecting the country can be treated this way, what does that say about how the police might treat ordinary people?
It raises serious concerns about accountability within the police force, about the use of force, about the potential for abuse of power, regardless of who you are or what you do.
And it makes you think about the bigger systemic issues that might be at play. Is this just an isolated incident, or is it a symptom of something more widespread? What about training protocols? What about the culture within police units? What about the mechanisms for oversight and accountability? Those are all questions that need to be addressed.
Yeah, it forces us to confront the possibility that this incident isn't just a one-off, that it reflects deeper problems within the system itself.
And the fact that the ex-servicemen were so determined to protest they weren't going to back down, that tells you how deeply this issue resonated with them.
They saw this as a fight worth fighting, for a fight for justice, for respect for the fundamental rights of all citizens. It's a powerful statement.
So let's just recap here. We have this alleged assault on a colonel and his son seemingly stemming from a minor parking issue. It sparks massive public outrage led by the colonel's wife and supported by the veteran community. There's witness testimony that supports their account allegations of a botched cover-up by the police and political figures jumping into the fray with their own agendas.
And at the heart of it all is this unsettling question about the relationship between the police and the people they're supposed to serve. What does it mean if a decorated military officer can be treated this way? What does it say about the state of law enforcement and the safety of ordinary citizens?
It really makes you question the whole foundation of trust in institutions. When something like this happens, it shakes people's faith in the system, and it raises these big questions about power dynamics, transparency, and accountability. It makes you wonder, what safeguards are in place to protect people from this kind of abuse, and how can we make sure that everyone feels safe and respected when they interact with law enforcement?
Those are tough questions, but they're the right questions to be asking. And this case from Patiala, it forces us to confront those questions head on. It's a story that's still unfolding, and we're going to keep following it and trying to make sense of it all.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more in-depth analysis of the news stories that matter.
Yeah, stay tuned, folks. We'll be digging deeper into this and other important stories in the coming weeks.